Yeah. I'll react if I had to. Put some things in the past too, and don't let them distract you, but react if you have to. Yeah. I'll react if I had to. Put some things in the past too, and don't let them distract you, but react if you have to. Yeah. React if you have to. Yeah.
Don't know the time, yeah. Just know that I'm, yeah, one of a kind, yeah. What's on your mind, yeah? Well, hard to find, yeah. Beautiful mind, yeah. Still in my prime, yeah. Just know that I'm here.
What's up, guys? Pond Offs Anonymous, episode 27. And here we are, huh, Jeff?
Here we are.
Saturday morning, 10 a.m. And 6 months ago, this would have been, or I don't even know if we've been on doing this for 6 months. 3 months ago, this would have been maybe a very easy, fun podcast to do.
Right.
But some things have changed regarding our guest that's on with us today. And it may make it a little bit more difficult than I had imagined, because without making her feel guilty at all, she's leaving quite the hole in my heart and my wife's heart, my son's heart, my dog's heart, if we had a pet hamster, my pet hamster's heart.
I think your hamster would
Maybe.
be okay. You're gonna make me cry right off the bat. This isn't fair.
If I had a beta fish, well, maybe we won't go there.
That's too soon, Chris. Too soon.
Yvi Martin is our guest today. Thank you so much for being here.
It is a pleasure. I can't believe it's taken me 27
Mm-hmm.
episodes. I mean, for such a big hole in your heart, I feel like that's a lot of episodes. You have to wait to be your guest, but I'm here and I'm happy to be here.
Jeff, she not only gives it back to me, she often one-ups me, and
Yeah, she's good.
it's not a whole lot of people that I've come across that can do that. Not that I'm good.
You have to have high levels of trust. Like, you have to have high levels of trust in one another to do that. So.
Ashley's upstairs with strict instructions on this particular interview to let you talk. Do not mansplain.
That's good.
And try to.
I'm not worried about you.
Yes.
I'll
Right.
shut you down.
I that's what I told her. I go, I think she can hold her own, and then she doesn't want me swearing or telling too many past stories that aren't appropriate. So I go, well, that's the whole podcast, Ashley. I don't know what you want me to do here. So for those of you that don't know, Yvi, for our 6 listeners, Yvi, there's
Important people.
Yvi has been a pastor at the Gathering for how long? 6 years.
6 years.
And
Yeah.
and I don't know. I mean, part of my story is I've been sober for just over 6 years. So 6 years has been my dedication to the church and to Jesus, and so there's some parallel there, and I think that's probably explains why she's been so important to me personally. We have a large church at the Gathering, but it's broken up into sites. For those of you listening that don't know, spread out through St. Louis. And the site that I go to, that I met my wife in, that we did life in, was the one that Yvi was the lead pastor for the last at least 4 years, right? Yeah.
4.
And so I was explaining to some people the other day that I didn't grow up going to church religiously, pardon the pun. I mean, I hit the big holidays, right? Every once in a while, my mom would really rattle the troops in our house and say, we're going, but it just was hard to do that. So I didn't really have a connection with a pastor, which I wish I now would have. We had one, growing up, I don't know if it's just because it's growing up in an Italian neighborhood. My father in East St. Louis grew up in a parish, right? Which I think is a fancy way for a neighborhood in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, it's like a geographical region within proximity
Sure.
of the church itself.
So,
yeah, it's only
right.
a Catholic word.
And it's funny. My aunt, who lives in Staten Island, she Catholic Mass. Just that's all it is to her. And she came she came when she visited to church, and I remember her telling you how much she loved your parish, and how
yes. I can hear the translation.
And how beautiful Mass was.
Yes.
In fact,
it was.
I remember her taking the wine cup out of your hand in communion and to take a sip of it.
That's right. That
I
does
bet.
happen from time to time, which a lot of Protestants don't drink the cup. They just dip the bread. There's weird stuff with communion. But yeah, anytime someone takes the cup, you got to be ready for it.
I grew up with the shot glass method of communion.
Yeah, you and me both.
Individual serving. Yeah.
Oh, you mean, I know what you mean. You mean the shot glass of like wine or grape. Yeah, I grew up with the literal shot glass. Right. It was full of whiskey, and I was doing communion all wrong for the first 30 years of my life.
Yeah.
The reason I'm talking about bringing this up, just to kind of preface this episode with Yvi, is that we had a Catholic priest that did our funerals, and Father Grogan, and he was always, if somebody said, do you have a spiritual leader? I'd be like, oh, Father Grogan. I'll see him in 6 months when somebody dies, and he'll give me the "where have you been? You need to change your life" speech, and there we go. So to me, that was my pastoral relationship until changing my life and then going to the gathering. And then I've always been friends with the two Matts, but I have not to make you feel weird, but I value our relationship. I think it's very special, and you've been there through all the important events in our life. So, maybe that's why I'm abnormally connected to you. I don't think I'm a stalker yet, but I mean, they say go to your pastor with some problems. So, it's a Tuesday night, and I'm getting ready to, mother somebody off the road, and I text Yvi, was this a good idea or not?
It's a great pastoral care these days. At least you're not showing up
Right.
on my doorstep.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a text. It might be a really long text or multiple texts explaining all of the situation, but at least I'm there for it.
And I appreciate it, and I hope that continues. So for those listening, Yvi has accepted a pretty big position, but unfortunately, it's on the other side of the state of Missouri, where the Super Bowl champions reside in Kansas City.
It's a great city.
Missouri.
Yeah.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah, right. Not the Kansas side, but and she called us to tell us this, and it was really just a ball fest with her and Ashley on the phone, and I was cutting an onion, so I had my eyes were watering a little bit, but we're really excited for you and your family. I think it's awesome, and I know I'm really mostly excited for the people of that congregation in Kansas City, because they're getting a real winner and a leader and a pastor that talks the talk, but also walks the walk, and then times infinite number. This year, just you do that, and that's, I think, why I've gravitated towards you so much. So we're super excited for you guys. What's the name of the church again?
Thanks. Yeah, it's Platte Woods, Platte, Platte Woods, United Methodist.
And Kansas City's not that far away, so she didn't quite escape. Not just me and Ashley. I think there's a group of us.
I'm pretty sure she could have talked her Clayton site staff into going across the state.
Jeff,
I didn't try, but no. And your texts will still reach me in Kansas City.
And I do send long texts because I feel I need to, I need to explain, and if you can't tell, I'm a wordy, you know what?
Yeah.
So
I appreciate Pondoff's text because they're always like paragraphs. He does the space between the paragraphs. Yeah.
Well punctuated. Yeah. You know everything you need to know in the text, which is really helpful because other people are super cryptic and they leave out all the details. But one text from Chris, and it's like,
you get it,
no,
and you just make sure that Zeke doesn't read it.
Right.
Learn some new words.
Yeah. So Yvi, I want to start, and I know you had said earlier this isn't the fun part for you, but I want to start with your story. It can be as short or as long as you want it, but it's important, and you'd be surprised, and you'd be surprised because you're a pretty special person. Not everybody has done and traveled the road you've traveled. In fact, in my particular social circle, I don't know many people that have even thought about sacrificing time and energy into some of the things you've done freaking globally in the name of Jesus and just love and people. So it is important. And now I'm going to listen to Ashley and shut the fuck up and let you, pardon my French, we're Italian. Evie's also Italian, so don't let it fool you that she can't drop a F-bomb, a couple swear words. So yeah, if you could, where are you from, Yvi? How did it all get started? And
Yeah, sure. Gosh. I'm actually St. Louis born, so that is important, I think. I was born here, but I grew up mostly in Texas. My dad got transferred when I was 5, so I started kindergarten in Texas all the way through high school. So North Texas, Arlington, home of the Dallas Cowboys. So lived through the glory years in the 90s, and really it was a special time. Has not been very special since, but so that's kind of home. My parents still live there, but yeah, a lot of Texas in me too. But then after high school, the reason I say it's not a very interesting story is, it's my story, so it's fine. But I grew up in the church. I grew up in generation upon generation of church people, and not just go to church people, church leaders, pastors, missionaries, seminary professors. Yeah. This was my my lineage kind of on both sides. So I was pretty entrenched in it. And unlike some who kind of, if you grow up in a real churchy tradition, sometimes you take a minute to step away in college, you kind of go off and do your thing and sometimes find your way back, sometimes don't. I never did. That just wasn't part of it for me. I think from an early age, I felt a sense of God's spirit in my life. I don't know how to explain it. It just faith wasn't something I ever had to wrestle. I have had to wrestle with it. I don't want to say it that way, but I just knew God was real, and I knew God had a purpose for all of us, and wanted to know what that was for my own life. So, and I think a lot of that was because I had seen people in my family, kind of to your point, make choices about their lives and follow a path in life that was outside of the ordinary, that called them to give something up or to sacrifice. So from a really young age, I had a sense that I wanted to be a missionary. I felt like God was calling me into something outside of this world that I know. My North Texas white kid upbringing, suburban life.
Did you?
And so I had.
Did you carry a 6-shooter down there? Okay.
I did not.
That might have been stereotypical.
Right. Well,
your dad did. Right?
So my family's Midwestern. Okay. I just happened to grow up in it. So it's all anyhow, so I felt a really clear sense, and this is what I name as my call story. You kind of mentioned that in your note earlier. Through a period of praying and a really special time, I won't go into all the details, but I really felt a sense from God. I was having an existential moment, and I was asking God in prayer, what do you want me to do and I meant like with my whole life. I was
Wow.
15. What do you want me to do, God? Like, what's the plan here? Because I'll
15.
do it. And so it's kind of yeah. I'll talk about that in a minute because I think it's important. But and I didn't expect to have an answer. It was just kind of like I'm just going to pray about this. Who knows what that means? But I immediately had a response. I heard a voice, an audible voice, speak to me and say, "Evie, I want you to go." Like, that was the sentence. This is a really clear voice and a really weird thing.
Terrifying.
It's
my first reaction.
Yeah. Well, you would think, but it actually wasn't. It was very like just affirm. It was like this. Yeah, it was otherworldly, but it was also like very much in my world and moment, and kind of peaceful. And I just like had a peace in my gut, and I said, so then I talked
obviously.
back because it's brilliant. I was like, great. Where do you want me to go, God?
Okay.
And a second response came and said, where is not important right now? I just want you always to be ready to go.
That
was the end of
I
the
think
conversation.
that's what I meant by terrifying. That's a quite a a marching order. The marching order itself is terrifying.
Right.
Go. Okay.
Right.
That's wow.
So it sounds really strange to talk about hearing voices, and I haven't again. That's kind of like the one defining moment. I do feel like being 15 has something to do with it. I think young people are just so like still open to the possibility that God is at work like in every moment of our lives, and so you have you're not jaded yet, you've got. Yeah. You're just in a different place. So like with young people, I'm always really sensitive that they're still being spiritually formed, and that they're open to directing their lives in a certain way that maybe a 25, 35, 45-year-old isn't. So that was kind of like my beacon, my guiding light then for the next 10 years, and beyond, obviously. But so that call, I immediately interpreted as like, go into the world, like go overseas, go somewhere adventurous. And I kind of did that. So went to college, met my husband, but we didn't get married right away because I wanted to go and, fulfill this calling. I thought I wanted to serve in mission, to be a missionary. I've always had a really deep interest and passion for people who are not like me, people who are different, cultures that are different. I've wanted to understand places in the world that just see the world differently and see God differently. So that took me a couple places. It took me to the Philippines, where I taught grade school. Took me to Mozambique for a couple of years, where I worked with children in impoverished communities. I still do work in Mozambique, as you know, through our church now, providing clean water for those communities that don't have it, those kinds of things. So that drive to always be ready to go, and also just a love for people. Like, the world is so much more interesting because of the people who are in it, right? Like, it's not, I don't make it interesting. Other people make it interesting. So it's just, that's always kind of been what has guided me. Ultimately then, it took me to really far away places like the Philippines and Mozambique and others, but it also brought me back to St. Louis, and it took me to Springfield, Missouri, and now it's taking me to Kansas City, Missouri. So that's kind of how I have measured my life, and kind of my willingness to be open to where I feel like God wants to use me next, I guess. It's not always easy. In fact, this may be the hardest time that I've had to wrestle with it, but that's, I don't know. You question very well.
This is.
I always feel like when people ask me to tell my story, it's a fairly rambling story. This was more of a truncated version of it, but I think the rambling is also part of the story. Like, I've never had a vision of a straight line. I've never had a clear idea of what I wanted to be. I never wanted to be a pastor. I don't even know how. Today, I don't know how that happened. But it's kind of just taking the next step in faith, I think, is what it is. And it doesn't always seem to make sense, but then looking back, it does.
Well, so. What I love about it we had a conversation. It was just randomly after or before a church service a couple months ago, where the people, some of my friends, some of people that I don't know if I maybe indirectly have some influence on them just by we always say in AA and a girl we had on who's doing so great in AA and helping people set attraction rather than promotion, and I think that is the way that I try to because religion and Jesus gets so polarized, especially now online. It's a sensitive subject for some reason out of the gate. Religion always can be. So that's my motto with, and I pray that I have a little bit of influence for the good on anybody that I come into contact with. I would leave them positive, not negative, right? I don't succeed at that by any means. I just try sometimes. And I had a conversation with some friends, and they have real struggles with, the science versus the Bible, right? And I remember having a conversation with you after church, and I said, one of my friends wants to know about did Noah's Ark really happen? And then we had a great conversation, and you explained to me that you have your brain, and then in your heart, right? And in your gut, like the feeling, and when you were, I've never had a audible voice like you experienced, but I hear God often in my gut, not with my ears. And I mean, almost too, I learned how to, excuse me, I've learned how to, I think in my 20s to avoid that and not listen. Boy, I wish I would have on a lot of occasions, but now with how I've learned to really lean into that. And when we talk about a call, when I say people like me, when they hear back, before I kind of tried to have a transformative change, right? We talked about that last week. Change my life for the people like us are like, well, what do you mean you had a call? Like that's they kind of make fun, and I used to do that. Like, what the fuck is somebody talking about? They had a call. Jeff and I talked about it on one episode, and it's funny when you say something like that, and then God's like, I'll fucking show you a call. Here.
Hold my beer.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, hold my beer. That's so funny. Like, here, go to rehab, you smartass, and then I'll show you a call. And I'm telling you, it's usually, all of my lessons in with Jesus have been through humility, of constantly being humbled. I mean, on a daily basis sometimes. But when you say your call, it's so powerful to me now, because I know what the fuck that means, and I get it. And I'm trying to show the people, be the rubber where the rubber meets the road, to the folks that are listening, that are so, whether they are the one at rock bottom, or they know a lot of people listen because they know somebody there, and they're trying to bring somebody to listen. Like this, this is real life stuff, and that is what we mean when you hear this call and you actually listen to it. And that's the powerful part.
Well, and there's no everyone. God is calling to each of us. Like, there's no person. It doesn't have to be a special story. It doesn't have to be ministry. Like, how boring is that, really?
Not boring.
But there's, like, God has a call for each one of us. Like in scripture, there are these images of, like, the shepherd, right? Like, it's all throughout scripture. And the shepherd, the sheep can't see. They don't see the shepherd. That's not how they know who the shepherd is. They know the shepherd's voice. The shepherd is calling all of the sheep. It's not just one. And even the sheep that have, like, wandered off outside the pen, or they're on the edge of the cliff, or they're sick, or the shepherd is calling to all of them. And that, I think that's so critical for people to to grasp onto, even if you don't believe, to at least that God is wants something from us, right? And that's like you said, just my speaker's not working.
You just crackled just a little bit, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You're
okay. Yeah. No, I just think for every person to know that God is calling to them out of love first and foremost, and then with a purpose, then with a, hey, you know, I gave you life on this earth, and you're very uniquely gifted to do with it. Whether it's a simple choice of how you're going to interact with a person that day, differently than you did before, or whether it's a job change, or whether it's a you know, a commitment to be sober. All of those things are God calling us into something. So it's not just a few.
I'm so glad you said that, because isn't the shepherd in the Bible? This is me being, you know, Bible less than 101. Okay, Bible like 097 class here. Yeah, isn't the shepherd representative of the shepherd in biblical times was a pretty ordinary guy? Ordinary person.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. And you know,
I mean,
the early Palestine. Yeah. It was kind of a fairly low class, ordinary job. Yeah. Yeah.
And often in the Bible, the people that God calls in the stories, all the stories, you know, it's usually an ordinary guy, or ordinary woman that needs. And it's so representative, because a lot of us think, well, that I can't do that. That's a special person.
That's something else, right?
And it's
right. No, it's the broken people, and I think this is why I became a pastor. Honestly, is because of the story. Because we are all in the Bible. The Bible seems really obtuse and really unapproachable sometimes. But it's a story about ordinary people and an extraordinary God. You're absolutely right. And all of us are in there. And when you start unpacking the story, and the ordinary sheep and the people who are being asked to do great things, it's just us. It's just us. And so it might seem like an irrelevant story or an old story, but it's totally not. I think that's what I love about it.
It's been easy for me, because I've had and I think you're, to me, you're anything but ordinary, but a very special woman reading deciphering that stuff for us. So we're gonna miss you and we'll get to that. But yeah, that's always been helpful for me, is to have somebody, and that's one thing I've always appreciated about the gathering, is that, you know. The message is you know, completely scripturally based, if I said that right. But you guys have such a knack at making it easy to understand in everyday life, because for some of us it's hard to really put ourselves, you know, and time ourselves back to biblical times. So But it is the same stuff. I mean, it's amazing how timeless and still relevant. And people question all the time. I don't get it, but
yeah, humans don't change that much, really.
That's funny. Yeah. In your since you said you never saw yourself maybe becoming a pastor. But since you have been, I know you deal with people all the time, and people's problems. I mean, I've been the one to bring them to you, and it's I mean, you guys are way underpaid therapists. Not that therapists make a whole lot of money, and I don't know the structure. Maybe you guys get paid, but that's how I think of it sometimes, and it's not fair. But thank you, and
it's it's on a commission basis. The more people I help, the more I get paid.
Yeah, right.
No, it's not.
Well, maybe when you get a long time from now, when you get in heaven, maybe you'll get some commission. You deserve it.
Maybe there's like an extra bonus or
nice.
something. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We'll see.
The reason I say that is because I'm sure you've come across more than just me on some really brutal topics, way more brutal than as brutal as addiction or any you do end of life stuff. It's crazy. It just the things that get brought to your lap and to not sometimes lose faith. But more what I wanted to ask you about in this episode, and it was our audience, is an addiction, mental health, and people looking to find hopefully a new way, maybe through Jesus and turning their life over to the best they can. But I imagine you've seen the awful side of addiction and what it does to families and friends of, and how it's a disease of not just the addict. Same thing with mental health. But also, on the flip side, maybe this is why you are who you are. You maybe seen some real triumphs over. And I know, now without getting into specifics, I was wanting you to touch on that a little bit, if you could.
Yeah.
I know you guys have a confidentiality thing.
Sure. Oh, right. No, I wouldn't breach any of that. But gosh, no, I think there's, it's interesting that you say we're therapists, because we're actually not. But
you're not? Oops.
No. I mean, we're listeners, we're pastors, but I mean, to be clear, I am not qualified or credentialed or professionally licensed to provide therapy or counseling. But there's a distinction between like therapy and pastoral counseling. Like I am equipped and trained to listen spiritually, to be able to figure out like when I've kind of capped out.
100%. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so I can, in conversations with people, it can become clear within one conversation or sometimes three. And usually 3 is kind of the cutoff. Like if we've had 3 in-depth conversations, I realize, hey, we need some more resources here because I am not equipped. And that's important to be able to know, like, okay, I can no longer provide you with everything you need. But it is what I love about those pastoral conversations is a person can feel comfortable coming to me and talking, maybe more so than they would going to a counselor or a therapist, just for whatever stigma is associated. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that shouldn't be, but there maybe still is. And so a pastor can kind of be that first point of contact, or that in-between person that's just going to listen non-judgmentally and hear who you are and where you are. And then determine what's next. Like, I think that's just really important, because again, it is, my hope is, and my approach always is non-judgmental. And to be honest, I can't guarantee every pastor in the world is going to come at it from that standpoint. So you want to find a safe space, but yeah, I just try to hear where if a person is feeling vulnerable and broken enough to want to come to me and talk about it, like that's just a really sacred space that has to be held carefully. And so some really beautiful moments have happened there where, I mean, everything from, like you're talking about addiction, a person admitting addiction to me, maybe for the first time. And obviously I'm not, like, that can't be where it stops, because I cannot single-handedly help a person break that pattern, but I can certainly walk alongside and help resource them. I've seen those. I've seen, marriages, people whose marriages are broken. Maybe there's been infidelity on one side or both sides, and trying to walk them through that, and again, provide like prayer and spiritual support, because I think that's important. it's not the only thing. So sometimes I'm just the first point of contact for people in financial trouble, for people in mental health trouble, in addiction trouble. And I think it's important, and I know AA does this, that one of the first things is acknowledging that there's something bigger out there that you got to get a hold of, or that's got to get a hold of you before any changes can happen. And so as a pastor, I've learned that I kind of represent that to people, whether I want that responsibility or not. There's that, it's just that first step of, okay, I gotta do something. I gotta talk to someone. I need help. And just, gosh, it's humbling. It's humbling to be the person sitting in that chair. And it usually catches you off guard. Like when I used to have an office, like people would just come in the office and be like, hey, this is what's going on in my life. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God. Okay,
right.
All right. Like, this is bigger than just, the internet's not working today, or,
which is a problem. That can be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So, gosh, I'm just kind of rambling again, but, I think there's what I've seen when people, especially struggling with addiction, whether it's at rock bottom, that unfortunately I'm not usually the person that's there at rock bottom. And I'm not, because people who are at rock bottom don't want to come to church. They don't think there's a place for them. And that is saddening to me. I understand it. I completely understand it, because the church has not been a place. It has not been a judgment-free zone, and it's not been a place of grace, which is the only thing that it should be. So it breaks my heart. So I'm not often the person that is sought out at that point. But when people are struggling, are in recovery, are making their way out of that darkness, the thing that I've seen, and the success stories and the beauty of God making that transformation is that it doesn't happen to that person by themselves. And so when I get to see it, when it's happening in the church, and it's happening because a person, yes, has made a determination to turn it around, but they do it with a pastor, and they do it with a therapist, and they do it with a community of people who are calling them and they're on them, and they're helping them every step along the way, especially on the hard days. Anyone out there who is trying to do it alone, or who thinks they're going to do it alone, I want you to have community. You've got to find people, and I hope that can be a church for you, because we're resourced. We have resources to help, and we know how to refer people and where to send you. And we don't just send you and then leave you alone. We want you as a part of our community, even if you don't have it figured out, even if your life is shit right now. We want you there, because we need you, right? We need you to remember what God can do.
Man.
Sorry, now I'm crying. Why am I crying? I don't know. I just think it's so powerful for not only what God can do in a person's life who is hurting and feels broken, but what that person can do for the whole community. Like when you talk about being called, did you ever think you might be called to change a whole community because they get to care for you and help you? Right? It changes everyone. It changes everyone.
You're
I'm rambling again.
You're amazing. And I couldn't have written up those words better. And I really hope that they're going to hit some ears, and I think they will resonate. I couldn't have written it up better, because we've talked often about the church has hurt a lot of people as a whole. I guess you guys say at the capital C, right? The big, yeah. Right.
The church, yeah. The big C church.
I can tell you that those rightful, if you're apprehensive to trying out the Jesus way, the church way, and you're apprehensive about because of things that you've heard or personally been hurt by of the church, I can tell you that's not the case at the church that Yvi has left and is moved, and it won't be the case where she's going. I can guarantee you that, because if I know, which I know Yvi pretty well, that ain't gonna be the how it goes down at old Plattwoods. You will be cared for and loved no matter who you are and what your problems are. And I want to like just put my face up to this camera on Zoom and like scream that, because I know it's 100% accurate that if you feel that you would never be at home at a church, that's not the case wherever she is, and it's not the case at the church that she helped bring to where it's at now. And we would, I give her my word that we won't let it become, and not to mention it's not even mine, but I mean the guy that runs the show is not going to let it. That's just not how it works. So,
right.
And
right.
Go.
And I think, I mean, I don't, there's a network of people represented just right here on this podcast, on this Zoom call. Like anyone who reaches out to you, if they don't live in St. Louis or Kansas City, there's more than 2 churches, that provide community and support for people. But I mean, I'm always happy to do the research because I know how to do that. So anyone who needs help, we can find a place for you.
You touched on the AA thing about realizing that this thing's bigger than us as an individual. And what I tell people is they don't realize how liberating it is to realize you don't have to fucking do it alone. I mean, can you imagine doing this alone? I can't. What a impossible task to do. And people think it's just the hard stuff, but can you imagine if you want to do it alone? Would you want to do the good stuff alone? It's not a possible task. So when you finally realize that, and it doesn't just apply to alcoholism and addiction, it applies to loneliness, to depression. Just by calling a pastor and making that step and sitting down and having a conversation, it makes you feel better as a person just by doing that step. I've kind of screamed this at the top of a mountain. I know a lot of people that have had to go to 2, 3, or 4 different therapists to find the right one for them. And it's not that therapists 1, 2, and 3 were bad. It just wasn't a good mesh. But the process doing that, it makes yourself feel better. That you're fighting back the enemy, and that you're reaching out to people, and it helps when you start doing that. You start realizing, you know what, I'm not alone. There are people that can help me, and I think loneliness is the root of so much rock bottom shit. It kills people. I mean, it's one of the deadliest diseases out there. I don't have any numbers or anything, but I'm sure it's up there if you really trace back why people are broken. And I think it's bullshit. Yeah. I think there is real loneliness. I know that, especially as somebody that is longing for a relationship and can't find the right person, or somebody that's been widowed after, X amount of time. That's real, and that we can help with that too. But God can help with that too. Is what I mean. But a lot of times, the loneliness, people that are wrestling with loneliness, it's not true. There are people out there, and that's what we're trying to shatter. It's a myth, and just by reaching out to a spiritual leader, a therapist, a doctor, even. I told people to call because doctors can help. There are people out there that can help, and that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my personal recovery journey, and it's been at the very foundation of it. when human beings let you down, you still have Jesus, and you're not alone ever when you really lean into him. And so there's a bug flying around, a peckernet as we called it Saturday night. It's like, God, sorry.
So you're
right.
So you're not alone.
Well
there.
done. I'm not. Evie, I don't think you could have said it any better. And I don't know how to thank you enough for coming on and telling your story, because it is important, and then what you were just saying about the role that you find yourself in and how it could be. Yeah, I'm sure it's an honor, like you said, when people trust in you, but it's also a tough task. We know that. Try to take it easy on you if we can. But you are a special person, and God's one of God's like true warriors, and it's been an honor to have you as our pastor. And this might, I wasn't gonna say. I don't mean to sound crude here. Usually, I'm just gonna say that. But when
here
that's always a good preface.
So I used to, in a different life, run around with some broken females, maybe like one I think of in particular in relationship, because I was broken and we kind of flocked together. Once I got sober, and I mean, let's just let the cat out of the bag. You should go to like questionable, strip clubs, things like that. Blah blah blah. I'm trying to mutter it so you don't hear, but you need to, because when I got sober and I met you, and I just like felt that the depth of the love you have, and I will say, especially for women that have endured some really brutal, like horrific shit that has probably led them to do like things like selling their bodies or shit that a guy, like a broken guy in my past, used to flock to. When I got sober, and I don't even know if I'm articulating this well, but I always was, I would like picture a girl that I knew that was a broken and suffered horrific abuse and ended up where she was at that stage in her life, drugs, alcohol, and sex, and like selling her body. And I always said, man, how the fuck do I get this girl in the same room with Yvi? Because I just like, she needs a hug. These girls need a hug from a woman like you. And it's always been a strong. I used to go to Fridays on Monday nights, and I would text you sometimes leaving, because I was trying to help people. And driving from Belleville to St. Louis, you kind of go past the exits to where some of those places are, and I would always have in the back of my mind, like, how this vision of like you knocking down the door in one of those clubs and like swooping up all those broken girls that are hurting so much and hugging them. And I got to figure out how to get. They need a. My prayer is that they come across you or a woman like you that will just fucking love them and let them know that it's going to be okay, because not all. You can never say all, but most of them come from, especially the one that I was involved with, some horrific abuse that led her to doing what she did, and it's just it's really heartbreaking. And the thought of them girls like her or never finding a person like you that can care and love and almost mother them. I don't know. It just that's my prayer for them, and I always think of you because you are the model for me of I don't know, matriarchal woman that just loves to love and would cry with them and let them know that it's going to be okay. You've done that with me, and I mean, I know how you are about women that have been shit on, and if Platwoods doesn't work out, you and I will just go start kicking down strip clubs doors and.
You're convicting me because I mean, you're totally right. What expectations should the church ever have that those women or anyone in this situation?
Hold on.
I think church might.
You're just breaking up. This is super important. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Why is it the expectation of the church that people come through our doors before we help them? Like, the church is not in the right place all the time. The church it's a moment of conviction. You're convicting me.
It's this vision. It's a call. I don't know. Yeah. You guys, you're right. Like, I can't. I'm obviously not going to say names, but she's not going to go to church, and I understand why. She is, and just using to represent the women that are suffering from addiction, that the only way they can feed the addiction is selling their body, and because there's, people like where I used to be that don't even think about it being an issue, and it's how we got to get to them, and just at the very least, and not beat them over the head with Bibles, like and turn them into nuns or turn anyone into that. That's not what you did with me. I'm not a monk in living in peacefully and not harming I'm an imperfect. Yes,
you're still you,
and that's a work in progress, as I'm often reminded by you and Miofsky, and Fulmer, and anybody else that's been in clerical position at the church. But I don't know. That was probably my first when I would go to that. When I go to Friday, just to sit and meet people where they were, if they had a drinking problem or a mental health deal, that they're not going to come to me. I got to go there. You the one who told me that, and I'm not putting this on you. I'm just saying that I just know that a leader, a person like you with the heart that you have, I pray that somehow there's a path that gets crossed, because I just know your warmth. I know your fierceness and protecting, especially when it comes to women that have been abused and hurt. You've been there for Ashley. Ashley's just loves you to death, and I just know it. And I don't know. I'm not trying to make it all poetic, but it's something I've always thought of when it comes to your gifts and your heart. And you do it every day to people that come into. One of these days, I'm gonna just get a bus. I'm gonna go down there, and I'm gonna say, "Here, I'm not gonna pay you for what you think I'm gonna pay you to get on the bus. We're gonna go check out Platwoods, and we'll let you get your feet wet there before I bring in another." I've already brought one party bus to your church. I don't.
Yes, you have.
My bachelor party.
It did. It turned out well.
And some of the guys, I think, paid attention too. Believe it or not. Well, now I was the one rambling, but
No, that means a lot. There's I don't know if you know this, maybe you do. There's an image in scripture of Jesus as a mother hen gathering her children under her wings. Like, it's a scriptural image that we just don't talk about. But like, that's what I was thinking of the whole time you were talking, is that even if paths never crossed, that there's just this image and this hope out there of Jesus, as like, if you're comfortable.
That's all. No.
Yeah, but just that, mother hens are fierce. They protect those chicks under their wings, and that's the image that God gives us of God's love for us. And
That's
I
it.
don't know. That's just
I didn't
something
even
as you were
know
saying
that
it.
image,
So,
and that's exactly.
yeah, we need a mother hen bus. We're just gonna go.
That could be. We'll do it. Okay. We'll make it a point. We gotta.
Okay.
Well, thanks a lot, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm great, man.
Have you forgiven Evie for the her final sermon she gave that was filmed on 5 or 6 different locations?
That was the most creative thing I got to do through this entire pandemic. So forgiven. I didn't hold a grudge.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And Evie, I'll verify. He said that to me. Because we were talking about having you on, and we've been trying to, get you on for 27 episodes, and Jeff was like, that was actually a lot of fun. Yeah. But Evie had told me not to throw you both under the bus. Evie was like, I felt so bad because it started. What did it start raining or something on like the middle of the last take?
Scene. Yeah.
We had to do that one like 3 times. We had to hike all the way up Art Hill because they shut off parking.
Carrying all the gear up there. Yeah.
A lot.
It was awesome. It was an awesome sermon. And it was your last one here, but it won't be the work.
Thanks.
Maskey can know this. I'm going to be tuning into Platwoods quite a bit too.
Great, that's great. You can't get too
Do you
much
know that
church,
Matt Bianski's son Caleb? His quote was, "Evie's by far the best pastor at the gathering. Way better than my dad." That's a.
Oh, when did he say that? He didn't say that.
He said that around a bunch of people. We were getting Charlie out of the kids ministry area at Clayton. He was jumping on the piano, but it wasn't. But yeah, Caleb definitely said that out loud, and It wasn't under confidentiality agreement. I'm not breaking shit.
That's the quote on the back of your book, Evie.
That's right. He's gonna.
Yeah, Caleb Miofsky.
That's right. It's hard for preachers' kids. My kids are gonna think I'm the worst pastor too. Not worst, but they're gonna have another favorite pastor.
You. I think I don't know. I think Zeke might. I think Laz is gonna be a loyal. Zeke might give you a run for your money a little bit sometimes. I don't know. I could have that off.
That could be.
Well, we're to say we're gonna miss you is an understatement.
Yeah.
Ashley, I was gonna have her jump on this to talk to you, but she said it wouldn't be good. She'd ugly cry and all that.
I'll be crying and it will. It could get messy.
The good news for me, bad news for you is that I might be doing some work in Kansas City here in the next starting pretty soon. So we'll have to get some barbecue together. Even though I know barbecue's not your favorite thing.
I can eat barbecue though.
Well, your mission out there is to find. I don't know Kansas City that well, so find the best Italian joint so we can go there. But like I said at the beginning, I mean, the connection that I have, that our family has to you, is probably unhealthy and weird. But we love you like a member of our family. You were there for us the entire time we were fostering a child, and there's no way that personally, and I think I'm speaking fairly for Ash, there's no way that I could foster a child, a traumatized child that had been separated from his mother for reasons that there's no judging. It just happened. The child, it's a traumatized baby to do that without you. I couldn't have done it without you. I couldn't have done it without God. It's just too hard of a task. It was a brutal at times, wiping tears and trying to to love unconditionally, which not trying to, doing, but knowing that it could end any moment, that you don't have no control over this kid. But you have all the responsibilities, but zero the control. So talk about feeling helpless and needing to lean on someone. And you were there every step of the way for Ashley and I. In fact, just, what is it, 2 weekends ago, you baptized them, and it was, got more emotional than I thought a little baptism would be. I've seen hundreds of them, but never had one for my own son, and just picturing his journey under your mother hen wings. Like, I don't know, man. I'm starting to get fucked up here. That's why the connection's so strong. You did our wedding. You prayed for us in a courtroom, which sometimes there is, that it feels that it doesn't have much spirituality to it. It's probably, I remember asking the judge, but because I was going in there assuming it could have been an issue, and the judge was like, "Are you crazy?" "Yeah, absolutely. Please pray over this courtroom." So Yvi did, and we have a great picture of it, and then just full circle. So you're a part of Charlie's tribe for forever, and he's gonna miss the boys, so we're gonna make sure we have to get them together often. So thank you so much.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even, like, when I think about it's such a gift to walk alongside people. Like, that's part of this journey, right? And my role is you get to step into those really special and really difficult moments in people's lives. And to have gotten to do that with your family so consistently in just a short time, really. I mean, 4 years, it's not that long. And it's humbling. And the feeling of gratitude is mutual. So thank you.
I won't make you, unless you want. I mean, do you want to pray us out? No.
Yeah. We pray. You don't usually pray.
I say let us pray,
say,
but
like,
if you say a quick prayer, then I'll say let us pray. How about we do that? Is that all right, or am I putting you on the spot?
Isn't that
Oh
backwards?
yeah, I'll say let us pray. You say a
what?
prayer, and then Jeff will cut it with the pretty music.
That sounds good.
Oh, good.
You'll get that.
Okay, I'm glad we got that straightened out.
You pastors really like when you pray.
Good. Yeah.
This is perfect. Yeah. This is fun. All right, so everybody, thanks for listening. If you need someone to help save your life, go to Plattwoods Church in Kansas City, and I'm sending them all your way, Evie. But still tithe at the gathering. Anyway, thanks for listening. Let us pray. For real this time.
God, you are you're a mother hen. Your love for us is so encompassing that we cannot even imagine it. And yet, when we step into it, we feel it, we know it, we can sense it. And I just pray your wings to spread over every person listening here today, whatever their story, whatever their circumstance, whether they are struggling today or whether they're strong today. Help them to know that you are there, you are with them, and that you have called up a whole community of people to care for them if they will step into it. Challenge those of us who are the church to go, to remember where your love is needed, not just to sit comfortable in our pews, but to go and to seek out those who need love and those who are lonely. Your grace and your love are bigger than we can comprehend, and we give you thanks.
Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, Yvi. We love you.
Me too.
If you're struggling or know someone that is, please have them check out our podcast and reach out to Chris or me. We want to listen, and we're super eager to help. Pondoffs Anonymous is Chris Pondoff and produced by me, Jeff Allen. Our music is Anti-Hero by McCall and Gentle Waters by Wild Wonder. For more information, visit pondoffsanonymous.com. Find us on Facebook and Instagram.